Hello and welcome back to this little corner of BookTube. My name is Lillian and I have a confession to make. I may have gone and bought a bunch of books. So this is going to be part one of a two-part book haul, just so it's a little bit more manageable for me to talk about all of the books, edit the video. Even if book hauls are a popular type of video on BookTube here, I don't think anyone would really want to sit through an hour-long book haul. I know I wouldn't. So all of these books have been bought since the beginning of the year, once my no-buy year of last year had ended. And I won't say I went hog wild, but maybe I went a little piggy wild. If you're new to my channel, hi there. I generally talk a lot about books, writing. I have a real passion for storytelling, and I really love to discuss that on this channel. So if you end up enjoying this video, feel free to stick around, subscribe. I would love to have you. And with that, folks, I think we should get into this pile of books. The first one I'll mention is Chain Gang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. Apologies if I mispronounced that name. This came out last May with Pantheon. I forget who on BookTube I heard talking about this, apologies, but after I'd heard them talk about it, it immediately went into my bookshop.org cart. This sounds like a really interesting near-future sci-fi dystopia debut novel. The description says that we are following two top female gladiators as they fight for their freedom within a depraved prison system that is not so distant from America's current one. Throughout this book, there are apparently footnotes that call out parallels between things that are mentioned in this book and America's own prison industrial complex. Things that inspired or are actual aspects of the current American incarceration system. Quote, Chain Gang All-Stars is a kaleidoscopic, excoriating look at the American prison system's unholy alliance of systematic racism, unchecked capitalism, and mass incarceration, and a clear-eyed reckoning with what freedom in this country really means. Next up, we have The Anthropocene, reviewed by John Guin, Essays on a Human-Centered Planet. I've been a longtime fan of John Guin and the Vlogbrothers channel here on YouTube. I've been watching them since around 2008, 2009. I feel like John Guin's young adult novels were a big part of my coming of age growing up. Back in 2011, I actually went with a group of friends to the National Book Fair out on the mall in DC to see him speak, and waited 3 hours in line to get a J. Scribble signature in my copy of The Fault in Our Stars, which had just recently come out. This is John's essay collection that came out in 2021, I believe, and with my recent love affair of essay collections, I decided that it was really time for me to pick this book up. Looking back at the early Vlogbrothers videos, I can see how much they shaped me as a young person, helped foster my worldview into something that is deeply driven by empathy and compassion and a desire for creating communities that can really enact big change. And that's something that I've definitely carried with me into adulthood. There's always been a through line in those videos and in John's books about the importance of imagining ideas, events, and humans complexly. The importance of empathy, community, and when those two things come together, so much good can happen. The description of this book says that it's a collection about the shared human experience with observations that double as exercises in memoiristic empathy. I'm very much looking forward to diving into this essay collection really soon here. This stunning book came out this past October with Farrar, Straus, and Giroux. This is Blackouts by Justin Torres, and I feel like I just need to read you the description of this book in order to do it justice. Out in the desert, in a place called the Palace, a young man tends to a dying soul, someone he once knew briefly, but who has haunted the edges of his life. Juan Gay, playful raconteur, child lost and found and lost, guardian of the institutionalized, has a project to pass along to this new narrator. It is inspired by a true artifact of a book, Sex Variants, a study in homosexual patterns, which contains stories collected in the early 20th century from queer subjects by a queer researcher, Jane Gay, whose groundbreaking work was then co-opted by a committee, her name buried. As Juan waits for his end, he and the narrator trade stories, moments of joy and oblivion, and resurrect lost loves, lives, mothers, fathers, minor heroes. The past is with us, beside us, ahead of us. What are we to create from its gaps and erasures? Justin Torres' Blackouts is a work of fiction that sees through the inventions of history and narrative, an extraordinary work of creative imagination. It insists that we look long and steady at the world we have inherited and the world we have made. a world full of ghostly shadows and flashing moments of truth. I don't think I need to say much more about this book other than wow, do I have high hopes for it. The next book is kind of a big one. I actually have to move to the side so I can get it in frame, and that is Zero Waste Patterns, 20 Projects to Sew Your Own Wardrobe by Birgitta Helmersson. I started to learn to sew last year and wanted to pick up this book as a way to continue that learning process. One of my goals for this year is to do my best to not buy any new ready-made clothing from a store. Instead, I'm challenging myself to either thrift or learn how to make the garment that I'm interested in. I want to do this for a number of reasons. The main one for me is sustainability and the environmental impact of the fashion industry. So this book is a very beginner-friendly pattern book because you're mainly just measuring and sewing from a bunch of squares or rectangles, which in turn ends up creating less fabric waste in the process. I've thrifted a bunch of fun cotton bed sheets to try these patterns out on, and I'm looking forward to it. Here's one of the skirts that is depicted in this book. And I'm also really interested at trying my hand at this really simple tank top. I think I originally heard about this book from Kat of Kat's Field Notes. This is All of This Could Be Different by Sarah Thankam Mathews. This book came out in 2022, and based on the reviews online, it seems to be either a hit or a miss with people. Based on the book's description and the way that Kat was talking about it, it sounds like it could definitely be a home run for me. We're following a 20-something protagonist in the aftermath of graduating college, starting her first corporate job in the midst of a huge economic recession, navigating personal relationships, her Indian parents' expectations, her first relationship with a woman, all the while she and her friends are beginning to realize that they need to start envisioning and implementing a better world for themselves and the world around them. To me, that sounds like it has the potential to be quite interesting. Also a moment for this really wonderful cover. Next up is a nonfiction book, and that is 100 Years War on Palestine, a history of settler colonialism and resistance from 1917 to 2017. This is by Rashid Khalidi. This book originally came out in 2020 and is obviously still incredibly relevant and important due to the ongoing genocide that is currently happening in Palestine. Rashid Khalidi is one of the foremost US historians on the Middle East, and this book is his recounting of the key events that have happened during Palestine's occupation in the last 100+ years, as well as relaying parts of his own family's history that have been entwined with those events. This is a new nonfiction release that I'm really looking forward to reading. This came out a few months ago this past August, and that is The Marriage Question, George Eliot's Double Life by Clare, Carlisle. And a moment for this cover. This is a biographic and philosophical portrait of the author George Eliot. I have Middlemarch on my shelf, which I'm looking forward to getting to, but so far I haven't actually read any of George Eliot's work. However, based on some of the tidbits that I've heard about her life, she was a really fascinating woman who led a very interesting and unconventional life in her time. Her life partner was someone that she met in her mid-30s who was a married man with 3 children. His name was George Lewis. They eloped and ended up living together for 24 years in Berlin, though they couldn't legally marry. And the relationship was seen as incredibly scandalous by her contemporaries. Quote, "In The Marriage Question, Clare Carlisle reveals Eliot to not only be a great artist, but also a brilliant philosopher who probes the tensions and complexities of a shared life. Through the immense ambition and dark marriage plots of her novels, we see Eliot wrestling in art and in life with themes of desire and sacrifice, motherhood and creativity, trust and disillusion, destiny and chance. Carlyle's searching new biography explores how marriage questions grow and change, and joins Eliot in her struggle to marry thought and feeling." The next 3 books that I'm going to mention I will very briefly mention because they were all favorites that I read last year from the library and wanted my own copies. If you would like to hear me talk about them in more depth, I will leave a link up in the cards to my favorite books of 2023 video. But in short, we have No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. This book is about how the constant stream of information and the ephemeral nature of the internet and social media can shape someone's personality and identity, and what happens when they are confronted with the hard lines of reality. Lavinia by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is Le Guin's incredible reimagining of the life of Lavinia, who is the wife of Aeneas from the epic poem The Aeneid. And this one, I don't know if I can say the title all in one breath, but I will give it a go. This book is not about Benedict Cumberbatch. The Joy of Loving Something, Anything Like Your Life Depends on It by Tabitha Carvan. did it. Awesome. This is a very meaningful and hilarious memoir essay collection about identity, motherhood, fan culture, and shame. Back to hauling new books. This is a new release from Simone de Beauvoir. Posthumously, it was a book that was deemed too intimate to publish during her lifetime, and it's called Inseparable. According to Google, this only came out in 2020, so a couple years ago. It reportedly offers fresh insight into the groundbreaking feminist's own coming of age, her transformative and very tragic friendship with her childhood friend Zaza, and how that youthful relationship ended up shaping her future philosophy. I've read excerpts of her seminal feminist work, The Second Sex, but I haven't tried any of her fiction before, and I'm very interested too. Next up is a poetry collection, and I have the selected poems of Langston Hughes. I've really been meaning to dive more into Hughes's poetry, so when I saw this collection, I snapped it up. I love carrying a poetry collection with me in my bag if I'm out and about. I just find that they're very convenient things to easily pick up and put back down. So I think this will be the new one that I put in my bag. Next is a book that I've really wanted to pick up for several years now, and that is The Cooking Gene, A Journey Through African-American Culinary History in the Old South by Michael Twitty. Michael Twitty is a culinary historian that I've followed online for several years now, and I've been really wanting to pick up. This is his first book, but this sounds like it's part memoir, part cultural history, part cookbook, tracing the origins and foodways of soul food, barbecue, and American Southern cuisine. I'm really looking forward to this. The next two books that I'll mention are both memoirs, and the first is Lady Sings the Blues by Billie Holiday and William Dufty. This memoir was released in 1956, 3 years before Billie Holiday's very untimely demise. This was co-written / dictated to a very close friend of hers, William Dufty, who helps tell her life story in a voice that is very much recognizable as Billie Holiday. I'm adding this to the growing pile of memoirs that I've been accumulating recently, and I can't wait to pick this one up in the next couple of weeks. The next one is Nina Simone's autobiography, I Put a Spell on You. She is one of my favorite musicians, and so when I saw her autobiography, actually the same day that I picked up the Billie Holiday one, I snapped this one up. This originally came out in 1991. It's pretty short, but I'm sure that there will be a lot to dig into in regards to her life and her career. Next we have Bell Hooks, The Last Interview and Other Conversations by Bell Hooks. This is a collection of some of her interviews, including the final one that she gave. Bell Hooks is one of my feminist heroes. She was a prolific, trailblazing author, feminist, social activist, cultural critic, and professor. There are 7 interviews in this collection, ranging from her early career until the last interview that she gave. In these interviews, she apparently discusses feminism, the complexity of rap music and masculinity, her relationship to Buddhism, the politic of domination, sexuality, and love, and the importance of communication across cultural borders. Looking forward to diving into this one. It is another slim volume. I feel like this will also be a good book to have in my bag as something that's easy to pick up and put down and come back to. And that is it, folks. That is the first half of the books that I have recently bought for myself. As you could probably tell, it's definitely a sizable stack, and there's still another one coming, so that'll be out in a couple of weeks. Stay tuned for that. But let me know if you've read any of these books in the comments below. Would love to hear from you. If you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. It helps my channel grow. I really appreciate it. And with that, I think I need to wrap up this video, so I hope you all are doing well, and I'm very excited to see you in my next video. Bye.